Welcome to the second lesson in our polynomials unit. This first screen here is just sort of a snapshot of what we did the previous day, and that is multiplying binomials using the area and the algebraic methods. So if you need a little bit more practice with that, try that one with the area method and this one using the algebraic method, and then just check the answers in the notes. I'm going to move on to today's lesson. So what we're going to look at today are same thing as we did in the previous lesson, except we're just going to look at a few different scenarios. And so this time we're going to focus on the box method or the FOIL method, and unless it specifies, you can choose which method you want. So we'll multiply this, and I need at this point to see all four multiplications. And then if you follow that kind of FOIL or and even if you switch your outsides and your insides, you'll notice that we still have this pattern, right, with the x squared and then the x's and then our constant. Because I'd already mentioned previously that we will be working backwards. So we'll just keep going. You just have to watch your negative signs. So 3m squared. And then just make sure also that you're watching to multiply before you simplify. So we want all of these to have the variable squared first before the variable and then the constant. So just mixing it up a little bit here. We're just going to keep practicing. We do have to extend it to, or expand it to 3 by 3 terms, which we'll get to here fairly shortly. So again, and so we'll just give you a little bit of time, and you can pause the video anytime and just kind of keep going and then checking your answers. So x squared and so here's our first one that ends up only having 2 terms. So you can see we still do those 4 multiplications, but because we have a positive 5x and a negative 5x, when we simplify that, we end up with 0, and so that ends up leaving us with only 2 terms. Now this is one of the ones that is really hard to have students retain over a long period of time. So of course we're going to do it now for a little bit, and then we'll take a little bit of a break, and I'm going to bring it back in a different unit and see if you remember it. So what I suggest to students is to write it out like this. You don't have to, but for some reason, when there's 2 binomials written like this, they'll remember to do the 4 multiplications, but here often they will just do the 2y times 2y and the 1 plus 1, and they'll forget about those outside and inside terms, which we can't do, and later on it causes us some big grief, especially in pre-calc 20. There's that one, and then we just have one more column to do. So x squared minus 10x minus 10x plus 100. I can't quite fit that in there, so I'm just going to see if I can. There we go. That looks a little bit better. And then the last 2 examples on this screen just end up with 2 different variables. And so worked a little bit with those last year, but we'll still follow our same pattern. So x times 2x is 2x squared plus xy plus 4xy plus 2y squared. Now students sometimes will say, well, do we have to put them in alphabetical order? Technically you don't, because when we multiply, the order doesn't matter, but you have to watch that you recognize you can add xy's with yx's because they're the same variables. So we'll still simplify here. We'll get 2x squared plus 5xy plus 2y squared. And the last one here, 8c squared. Same thing with the alphabetical order. then we just have one more screen, and it's actually it's kind of going, taking something that we already know and applying it to this. So one of the things that we need to do in this unit is to multiply two-digit numbers using a multiplying binomial strategy, which means what we need to do is change this to 2 terms times 2 terms. And so we're going to look for another way. We're going to break down 32 into something plus something. Now there's quite a few different combinations we can do, right? There's 16 plus 16. There's 2 and 30. There's 11 and 21. But it's probably easiest for us if we break it down into the tens. So that's 30, right? 3 tens plus 2. And so this, what this does is allows us to follow that same pattern, right, where we multiply the firsts, outsides, insides, last. Now, because we have no variables, it really doesn't matter what order. So 30 times 10 is 300, plus 20, plus 30, plus 2, and so then we have 320, 350, 352, and for sure on the quiz in the exam, please remember to take your calculator and double check, because it's easy to make a kind of a silly mistake here, just to make sure that when you multiply these two numbers together, you get this one. So it has to be done this way, right? I mean, technically you don't have to pick 30 plus 2. You could pick a 16 and 16 here. It just makes it a little bit trickier. So I'll let you do this one, so pause the video and give this one a try. So I like to do it this way. And remember, in between here's multiplication, so don't put an addition sign in there. And that's the end of that lesson.